Hey YouTube, Casual Brews here with my Week 9 NFL recap and review. Um, yeah, pretty awful week in a couple ways. One of my picks did pretty bad, and I'm battling a cold for like a week now. I think even in my Week 9 picks, it's kind of when it first came on. Got tested. It's not COVID. In a weird way, I wish it was because I'd probably feel less sick than I do now, being that I'm vaccinated and all that. But yeah, it's been pretty rough cold for like a week here. So between that and just a bad week of picks as well, it's only up from here, I guess you could say. Yeah, so pretty crazy week in the NFL. Honestly, a lot of upsets. A lot of underdogs won outright. Um, it's pretty crazy. I think if you were to like parlay all the underdogs that won outright, the odds were like, I don't know, it was like several thousand to one. So yeah, crazy week of football. Honestly, I was way off. I went 4-10 against the spread, pretty brutal. But for like second or third week in a row, I actually did good in the over unders. I was 8-6, not great, but at least saved me from an even more tragic week of picks that I kind of gauged the point totals a little better. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to maybe change my line of thinking a little bit. I feel like I took some picks that were almost too easy, and what do you know? If something seems too easy, it maybe is. So I don't know. Fell for a couple trap lines maybe. Took a couple favorites that were a little too big, obviously as well. Yeah, and just some teams that like for like one example being the Minnesota, Baltimore. I figure why not lay 5.5 points against a team that's they came off the loss against Dallas, this and that. I took some lines against, I bet against some teams that looked really bad last week, so I can't even feel too awful about my picks, really, in a sense, the logic I used, because the evidence was there. But I think the bounce back logic kind of got me. A lot of these teams coming off bad losses, bad performances, did a little better in these week's games. So, yeah, anyways, to get into it, Thursday night game, it's a tough one. Colts 45, Jets 30. Colts got off to a big lead early in this game. They were rolling. Looked like right off the jump. I had the Jets plus 10.5. Looked like right off the jump that was dead. Mike White got hurt. Their quarterback from the week prior. Sorry. And yeah, it looked like that was dead in the water. Jets rallied ferociously. We're driving the ball, I think, into almost in the red zone. The chance to cover the spread, and I think threw an interception. So that one fell short. Yeah, the under 46.5 wasn't close, unfortunately. And yeah, so that was the first double loss to start my week off. After that, you had Falcons 27, Saints 25. Yeah, Atlanta coming off a kind of a poor performance against the Panthers the prior week. They looked in this game how I thought they were going to look against Carolina when I picked them in that game. Just again, unfortunately, can't seem to win sometimes. Atlanta bounced back, put a good performance on, beat the Saints outright as 6-point underdogs. Yeah, I mean, Saints still, their offense didn't look bad per se, but obviously still they got some questions at quarterback and receiver too. Like Trevor Siemian's obviously not that guy, but until Michael Thomas gets back, they're still a little bit weak at receiver. It kind of just makes it tough for them to move the ball consistently. You saw that in the Seahawks game. Outside of Kamara, there wasn't really much going for that offense, even when Jameis was playing. So, yeah, I mean, kind of in hindsight, not surprised by the result because I really liked Atlanta last week. They laid an egg in that game against the Panthers, and here you go. They did what they should have done, and they beat the Saints outright. They're, like I've alluded to, they're going to be a sneaky team maybe down the stretch. It'll be interesting to see how they play the Bucks again in their next matchup against them in that division. Yeah, so I lost that pick. I had the Saints, obviously, and I also had the under 42. Just thought Atlanta's offense hadn't looked good against Carolina. Saints offense hasn't looked good at, multiple times. Just thought, especially with the Saints defense, and that was a big surprise too. The Saints defense had looked really, really good a couple games in a row. They obviously kind of let the Bucks back into that game a bit, and yeah, they just didn't really have an answer for Matt Ryan. Kind of surprising. He threw all over them. Didn't really have a great run game that game, and Matt Ryan carried them to victory. So, kind of surprising result on the Saints end defensively. So the over hit there. So 0 for 4 at this point. Next game we had Cleveland 41, Bengals 16. Yeah, kind of again, in hindsight, it's not too surprising because the Browns at times have looked good this year, and they've also looked really bad too. So it's like the good Browns came out. Everyone was saying, "Oh, better off without Odell." All the numbers and the stats show it, but it just seems a crazy concept that still, I think, very good receiver makes a team worse, but the numbers backed it up, especially from Baker Mayfield and his performances. And first game without him in the lineup, they whoop a division rival who had been playing well, coming off a tough loss against the Jets. You figured they were amped up to get back on the winning track, and they laid an egg. Burrow, he's great. He's going to be great, I think, long term. Still a little turnover prone though in the NFL. Takes chances in that, and through that end zone interception, return for a pick six, and that kind of knocked the wheels off the bus there for the Bengals. And yeah, the Browns defense showed up the way they have in most of their games, except for obviously the Chargers game mainly. Yeah, defense played really well. Myles Garrett, pretty easy pick, defensive player of the year right now. He had another sack or maybe two, I don't know. And yeah, so Cincinnati's maybe not quite as good as we thought they were. Still early enough in the season. They're in a logjam of a division right now. All four teams are still in it, for the division title. So obviously Pittsburgh coming off their win. It's going to be probably a tight race down to the finish in the AFC North. So Bengals got to pick themselves off the mat quick here and get back into it. So yeah, I lost that. Had the Bengals minus 2.5. Obviously lost outright. And yeah, at under 47, I just thought these defenses are both pretty good, and Cleveland's was, but Cincinnati couldn't really do much to hold up their end of that bargain. So make that 0 for 6 so far in the picks. Next up, we had Ravens 34, Vikings 31. Another comeback for the Ravens. Minnesota coming off a really bad loss to Cooper Rush and the Cowboys. Figured this pick was almost too easy. The Ravens playing pretty well. Yeah, they got off to a slow start, which they have done multiple times this year. And Lamar Jackson's become the comeback king, and they brought him back from the dead, and I think they were down 14 points going into the fourth, maybe I want to say. And he brought him all the way back through that touchdown and a couple other passes on that drive to Pat Ricard, who's this guy looks like an offensive lineman. He's a fullback, and he can run, he can catch. He's a great player, and it'll be interesting to see if they continue to use him more. He's a weapon. You can watch the Vikings players try to tackle him on the sideline when he had that 20, 30-yard pass before he caught the touchdown. I think that made it a 7-point game at that point. He's a beast, man. Holy shit. Yeah, Lamar Jackson continuing to play well. Had a couple interceptions again. I think one was not his fault. The guy missed the block or something like that on the batted pass. But yeah, he's still he's still on the ball. I mean, he's more often than not, he's showing you that he can throw. He may not be an elite passer, but he's pretty darn good and makes a couple mistakes here and there, but he's still dynamic, looking as good as ever, honestly. Yeah, Baltimore unfortunately didn't get the cover, which I had bet them to, but they still were impressive coming back. And Minnesota, it's just a heartbreaking loss after another, man. I mean, their season, the NFC wildcards are pretty low. I want to say the last wildcard spot maybe still is Carolina. I haven't looked. I just know it's not a high win mark right now to get the last wildcard in the NFC. So the Vikings aren't necessarily out of it, but these bad losses just keep piling up for them. On one hand, you could say the law of averages has to turn in their favor eventually, and maybe they start winning some of these close games. But yeah, they're they're in it tough right now. I don't know. The roster's good run game, good receivers. Kirk Cousins is mostly decent to good. I don't know. Vikings. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say about them anymore. Yeah, so my first win was the over 49.5. Again, I just thought two teams that can score pretty well. Um, Defensively, Baltimore gives up a shit ton of big plays, but overall they play pretty okay defensively. I just figured Baltimore would come out hot offensively, which in the end they did, and it was a high scoring game. So first win of the day to go 1-7 so far was the over 49.5. Next up we had Patriots 24, Panthers 6. Really stupid pick in hindsight on my end going to over 41. I just thought it was too low. I really thought the Patriots had found a rhythm offensively, which they kind of did in this game. But Carolina just miserable on offense, just absolutely miserable. This game was low scoring slugfest all the way. I did pick Patriots to cover -4, so won that one at least. But yeah, stupid to think that game would go over. It's just New England likes to get in those low scoring games too. So even though they can do things offensively, Carolina's defense is still pretty good. One of the maybe better units in the league. So that was a bad pick on my part going over. But yeah, New England, man, I've said it like the last 3 or 4 videos, picks in weeks and all that. Like I've been saying, they're gonna make a run, and they look poised to do so. Granted, Carolina's not that good, but you look at Buffalo. You gotta handle. You gotta put the foot down on these bad teams. Good teams handle bad teams the way they should. Patriots handled Carolina. The game was never in doubt, and Patriots defense is pretty darn good too. They made life miserable for Sam Darnold, who obviously is still the Sam Darnold we saw in New York. He's just not that guy. Yeah, bad interceptions from him today, and yeah, New England both sides of the ball. Like they don't really look great, at anything, but they just seem to do a lot of things really well. They just play solid on both sides of the ball, and that could be enough because, look at some teams, like you looked at the Chiefs last year, very, great offense, but defense, a little suspect, and when they had one off game offensively in the Super Bowl, they couldn't do much because they're bad defensively. So yeah, they're very good on both sides of the ball, and that could be a formula for them to make a run in the playoffs. I think they're only a game back of Buffalo for the division. I feel like at worst, and I've said it already a couple weeks ago, at worst, I feel like they're going to get a wild card, and if Buffalo can't figure it out, watch out. They might reclaim the division that's been mostly theirs for the past 20 years. So yeah, watch out for the Patriots. So leading into the next game, Buffalo, Jacksonville, Jaguars win 9-6. Buffalo had the ball a lot in this game and didn't get points to show for it. They had fumbles, they had interceptions. Pretty sure they controlled the possession pretty heavily and just couldn't get points against the Jaguars team that looked terrible against Seattle. What does that say? Good things about the Seahawks? A little bit, but just bad game by Buffalo. Hopefully for their sake, it's just a one-off. You burn the game tape, you move on. Yeah, very bizarre. And it's not like Jacksonville defensively looked very good recently either, so it was bizarre how they were able to stop Buffalo like that. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's the second time I've had to pause the video due to a coughing episode. But, yeah, anyway, yeah, Buffalo, hopefully for them it's a one-off. I think they're well-coached enough. They are experienced enough. Still a kind of a young-ish team, but I think they're experienced enough they'll bounce back from this. So I'm not too worried about them yet, but if they don't look good next game, it might be time to dust off the panic button a little bit. So yeah, I don't think this says anything for Jacksonville. I mean, he scored 9 points. Buffalo's defense is pretty good, but not great. I don't think this says anything about Jacksonville, about them being, better than just a 2-win team like they are right now. I just think it says Buffalo just had a bad, sloppy game. They looked good at times. I mean, like I said, I think they controlled most of the possession. They had long drives, and I just didn't get points out of, right? Turnovers kill you, no matter who you're playing. So yeah, I had Buffalo to cover 14.5. Obviously not even close. They lost outright, and I did have the under 49. I just thought Jacksonville would struggle to score, which they did. Didn't expect Buffalo to struggle to score, but anyway, I'll take that at least. Next up, we had another big shocker, maybe the second biggest shock of the day besides the Buffalo game, Dallas and Denver. Broncos 30, Cowboys 16. Yeah, crazy. I mean, I thought Denver would keep this game close. That's why I picked them plus 10. But didn't expect Dallas to lay an egg like that. Denver's defense, pretty good. But their offense was what surprised me a lot, too. They were moving the ball well. Still not a really big believer in Bridgewater. I just see him struggle to make routine intermediate throws, especially to the sidelines. But he uncorked some deep balls that looked pretty nice. And they've got some good receivers, man, like Tim Patrick. He's bigger than I thought he was, too. I don't watch enough of Denver. I didn't realize I knew Tim Patrick was a good receiver, but I didn't realize how big he was. He's big, strong. To put him with Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, that's a good core right there. And if they can get consistent, good quarterback play with that defense and the run game, too, they were running all over the Cowboys. The rookie, Javonte Williams, I watched him in college. He's really good. Looked really good today at this breakout game. He kind of been sharing reps with, obviously, Melvin Gordon. But yeah, run game looked good. They looked good on all facets of the ball. I mean, obviously they've had a hot and cold start to the season, but they got some foundations laid in Denver to be a really good team. If they can just get consistent quarterback play, whether it is from Bridgewater, again, I'm still not really a believer, but if they get good quarterback play, they got a lot of other pieces to fit in there. So yeah, good for the Broncos. Cowboys, I mean, defensively, I don't know. Like they've put in some good defensive performances, but they're still a little susceptible in the secondary, I think. Yeah, Diggs, very much boom or bust. He got beat pretty bad on that one touchdown to, I think it was the Tim Patrick one. He's a boom or bust guy, goes for the ball. Maybe not a fundamentally sound corner yet in coverage. And then besides him, I don't know, they don't. Anthony Brown, I mean, Dan Quinn's obviously coaching. I feel like Dan Quinn is coaching the defense well, but some of the personnel is still a little bit to be desired. So we'll see if they can bounce back from this. Dak didn't look. He looked terrible, actually. Dak did, but first game off an injury. I don't know. Just kind of like the Bills, I'm not going to quite pass judgment on them yet, just off the fact they've looked so good in other games this season. So maybe same thing as the Bills, just burn the tape. We'll see if they can bounce back before we really pass too much judgment on them. Still leading that division by like at least 2 games. So yeah, you're going to have a bad game once or twice in a season. It's going to happen. So yeah, but first game that I won both results on, I had Denver plus 10. I had the under 49.5 as well. I just figured Denver's defense is good. Dallas's defense can be good. Yeah, I thought Dak would be a little bit rusty coming off that injury. Didn't expect him to be that bad. I mean, he got a couple garbage time touchdowns, but it was 30-0 for a chunk of time there. So yeah, at least that was fairly comfortable. Next up, we had Miami Dolphins 17, Houston 9. Battle of 2 of the worst teams in the league. I just thought with Tyrod Taylor coming back and Houston looking decent when he was in there earlier in the season, I thought they could cover or maybe even win that game outright. Obviously, he looked like crap, but I guess maybe should have expected it a little bit. He hadn't played in 4 or 5 weeks. And yeah, Miami's defense kind of showed the flashes that we kind of expected from them coming into the year. They were supposed to be better than they've looked so far this season. And yeah, they squeaked by and lost me that Houston plus 6.5. Not really much else worth noting in this game. It's like a billion turnovers, defensive struggle, which is what I figured. That's why I picked the under 46 and that hit. So yeah, just low scoring, bad game, bad everything really. Tua didn't play. It was Jacoby Brissett. I think they announced it like close to game time even too, and maybe that was the difference. I don't know. Tua, I think the jury's still out on him. He looks good at times, but is he the answer? Jacoby Brissett, as he proved with the Colts and at times with the Patriots, he can be a serviceable quarterback. He's not going to be anyone's marquee guy, but he can go in and win you a game here and there, which he did. So yeah, Miami won 17-9. Next up, another one I was wrong about. Giants 23, Raiders 16. Just thought the Raiders have been on kind of a roll. They've been covering more often than not, I feel like. Yeah, they were doing some good things offensively lately. Obviously, losing Ruggs hurts in a lot of ways. On a personal level, also, game-wise, it takes away a deep threat, which probably hurt their offensive scheme a little bit, caused the Giants to game plan their defense a little bit more, and yeah, not have to worry so much about someone running by them the way Ruggs can. So yeah, Giants, they're a weird team. I mean, they can hang with anyone. I feel like they don't really, outside of maybe the Rams game, off the top of my head anyway. They kind of hang in tough with teams. I mean, yeah, they probably won't make the playoffs, but they'll be a tough game for anyone, honestly. Defensively, they're good, and then they can kind of move the ball at times with Daniel Jones. He's, again, very hot and cold himself. When he's on, he's like a decent to solid starting quarterback. And they have some pieces around him, not a lot, but, they figure out how to move the ball enough. And, yeah, they won outright as underdogs. So I lost my Raiders -2.5, and I picked the over 46.5. I just thought the Raiders were on enough of a roll. They could score 27, maybe 30 points themselves. And yeah, maybe the loss of Ruggs kind of hurt them and kind of limited their offensive game plan, and also limited what the Giants had to worry about on defense as well. So yeah, that was a tough one there. Next we had Chargers 27, Eagles 24. Yeah, kind of back and forth game. Philly has been playing better lately. I mean, kind of got off to a slow start in their season, but they're looking feisty lately. They had the lead, I believe, at a time in this game. Scored a touchdown, I think, pretty late in the fourth quarter, maybe 3 or 4 minutes to go or something, to tie the game after Chargers had taken the lead. And then Chargers came down the field, scored a walk-off field goal, which got me my Chargers -1.5 cover and the over 50. So a rare double winner there. Yeah, Chargers, I thought -1.5 was an easy pick. Just Philly still didn't think they were that good. They look better than I expected in this game. Chargers, I don't know. I think they had a lot of, maybe, dare I say, top 2 team in the AFC kind of hype a few weeks ago, and now they've kind of fallen back to earth a bit with bad losses, and then they made this game was probably closer than they would have liked it to be. And they're also in a log jam of a division in the AFC West. Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders, Broncos, all kind of right around the same record, so they're gonna have to play a little more consistently themselves too. And yeah, not much else to say about this one. I mean, Eagles, maybe kind of like the Giants, another feisty team that may not be a playoff team, but they still seem like they can kind of hang in with everyone. So it'd be interesting to see how the rest of their season goes, especially against the Cowboys when they play. Yeah, so after that, Chiefs 13, Green Bay Packers 7. Obviously, the big news in this game was Aaron Rodgers being ruled out. The line went 7 points. I think it was like Green Bay. I initially had it Green Bay before I made my video doing my picks. I was going to go Green Bay +1 at the time. Yeah, that was with Rodgers playing. I'm like, it's easy, no brainer. Kansas City has not been playing well. Line moved, obviously, with Rodgers out to 7.5. Still thought I would go with that. Yeah, just Kansas City hasn't shown me enough. I thought they'd win this game close. But they still, again, this is kind of more evidence. Their offense is just all out of sorts, and teams seem to have found the answer defensively to solve a lot of the crazy backyard football style plays that had been so effective for them in years past. And yeah, Green Bay's defense at times can be solid. They were still, I think they were without Jair Alexander, big loss, but the rest of those guys, they played pretty well. And Kansas City's defense, I will say though, actually played obviously against Jordan Love. I mean, he was horrible for most of this game, absolutely horrible, missing routine throw after routine throw. Devontae Adams beating his guys multiple times, and just Love couldn't even come close to finding him with the ball. So really defensive struggle. Packers defense played well, but also Chiefs offense just doesn't seem to have a rhythm right now. And Chiefs defense has played really well the last 2 or 3 weeks. Take it with a grain of salt against Jordan Love, like I said, but they're maybe rounding into form a little bit, and if Chiefs can figure out something offensively, maybe they can get back into this thing and be a contender again, because their defense maybe has turned a corner. Who knows? It'd be really, I think the test will be next week. I believe they play the Raiders on Monday Night Football, I think, or Sunday night, one of the two. So that'll be the big test for them. Raiders, coming off a tough loss, will be amped up, I'm sure, in that game. So that'll be the real test to see, okay, are the Chiefs, especially defensively, maybe back, but also can they figure out their offense against another solid team in the AFC, a divisional opponent in a tough division race. So we'll see how that goes for Chiefs fans. But yeah, I won both. I had the Packers to cover, which they did. Close one, had to sweat that one out, but they covered. And then under 48, I just thought Chiefs struggling to score. I knew the Packers would struggle to score with Jordan Love, and henceforth they did. So that was an easy one there. Rare, another double winner. Next we had another big shocker. But at the same time, maybe it shouldn't have been a shocker. I don't know. Tennessee Titans 28, Rams 16. Just thought without Derrick Henry, Titans would struggle to score, and the Rams made it easier for them by, Stafford threw the pick six and another interception as well. Pulled the Carson Wentz play out of his hat there, trying to avoid a safety, yet throwing it right to the Titans player, and was effectively almost another pick six. I think they scored the very next play when they had the ball. So yeah, I mean, they sure made it easier for the Titans. Titans are clearly still a good team outside of Derrick Henry. Their defense was probably the biggest shock by far. I mean, a defense that looked really bad. I vividly remember against Baltimore, their defense looked awful. Couldn't do much of anything, and they came to play, especially up front. They were all over Matt Stafford. What I thought was a really good Rams offensive line just got killed to the point where they had to, they literally couldn't keep Matt Stafford in the pocket for more than a second. They had to resort to, the gimmicky offensive, rolling him out nonstop to avoid the pressure. It was insane to watch. Because one thing Titans defensively especially couldn't do was rush the passer. And they didn't really address that at all in the offseason, too. They haven't been able to rush the passer for years, kind of like the Seahawks. But they didn't even address it at all. So to see them have so much success doing that was shocking. Then yeah, offensively, they did enough. I mean, 28 points, when you consider they had basically 2 pick sixes, isn't a lot, but kind of like the Chiefs game, they did enough. Obviously, without Derrick Henry, it's going to be an adjustment period. Have to throw the ball more. Adrian Peterson kind of expectedly didn't look great. He had the one touchdown to kind of ice the game, which was good for him, but he still looks a little slow at his age in that. But yeah, the other couple guys they put in there ran the ball decently, though. So, you think about it running back by committee. I mean, with Derrick Henry, it was basically just him. Some teams like the Browns, even Seattle at times, Dallas, they'll kind of rotate 2 guys in and out. With Derrick Henry, it was just Henry. No one else touched the ball in the running game. So maybe if they can kind of figure out the strengths of all 3 of their guys and maybe have a serviceable running game by committee, along with Julio Jones, AJ Brown, their tight ends are really effective too. They could still have a pretty competent offense, and if their defense can build on today, I mean, my God, it was insane. It was unexpected, and yeah, the Rams, I don't know. I mean, the Rams, maybe not as good as we thought they were, but maybe just like the Bills game, maybe it's the one bad game they had. We'll see what happens next week with them before we can really pass too much judgment. So yeah, had the Rams to cover. They didn't, obviously. And they had under 53.5, which at least hit here. I just thought Rams defense is good enough, which I mean the Rams defense still played pretty well. You know, you take away those 14 points, basically Matt Stafford gave the Titans. The Rams defense still played pretty well, which I kind of figured they would, so it seemed like an easy pick to go under that high number. The next one, probably the pick I feel stupidest about, most stupid to be grammatically correct. Arizona 31, San Francisco 17. After I've been beating the drum all year long about the Niners being overrated, I think maybe the only time all year I picked them. I figured, okay, Kyler Murray's out, like Colt McCoy gonna beat the Niners, and Kyle Shanahan's genius offense, is he gonna outscore Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy G and Greg Kittle and George Kittle, and all those weapons, the run game and Deebo Samuel and all this and that, and there's no way Colt McCoy can outscore all that, right? Actually, yeah, he can, because I should have known better. Man, 49ers, they're a joke. They are a joke. Kyle Shanahan's a joke. He's, dare I say, on the hot seat if this shit continues with the 49ers. You cannot lose at home to Colt McCoy by 2 touchdowns. That's insane. That's just shameful. Absolutely shameful. Disgusting. Nauseating as someone who had to swallow his pride and pick the Niners just strictly off. If Kyler Murray was playing, it would have been a no-brainer. I mean, the line would have obviously been more in favor of Arizona to, lay points, but oh my god, I just feel so sick about this pick. Like, oh man, just disgusting that I had to pick the Niners and they completely blew it like that. I should have known. They're a joke. Yeah, they're a joke. Can't wait for them to finish 7-10, 8-9 at best this year, and fire overrated junk Kyle Shanahan. So, yeah. Or no, don't fire him. Please don't fire him. As a Seahawks fan, keep Kyle Shanahan and his gimmicky coaching in San Francisco. It'd be better for me as a Seahawks fan, but yeah, fuck. Obviously lost that pick. It was a pick 'em when I took San Francisco. Just thought Colt McCoy, no way. And Colt McCoy looked decent. I mean, he didn't light the world on fire. They relied heavily on their run game and passing to the running backs. James Conner had an amazing day. Yeah. Jesus. And yeah, and DeAndre Hopkins wasn't playing either. Like, come on. Unbelievable. So, again, I'm not going to get too amped up over this as an Arizona. For okay, this shows a lot about Arizona. They won kind of like how the Cowboys won without, Dak. Cardinals won without Kyler and without DeAndre Hopkins. But I think this is more about San Francisco. They're a joke. Yeah, but I had the over 45 at least on this one. Just thought it was kind of, even though obviously I know Kyler was going to be out, I just thought, Niners can score. I picked them, so at the time I was thinking they would win pretty comfortably against a Cardinals team without Kyler, score enough points, this and that. So at least that hit. And then lastly, the Monday Nighter, bad loss. Bad loss. At Pittsburgh minus 6.5. They won 29-27 over the Bears. This was a tough one because I actually, when this got closer to game time, I actually wish I had have picked the Bears. Honest to God, I was kind of regretting the pick now, even though I knew, okay, Bears have been playing pretty bad. I just had this weird feeling that the Bears were going to come and have or at least Justin Fields would have a coming out party, which he did. So much so that before the game, I put a decent amount, at least for me, I don't bet a lot of money, but for my standard anyway, I put a decent amount down on the Bears first half Bears first half plus 3.5. And it came out of the gates flat offensively, conservatively, didn't get anything going. They were down 14-3 at half, and I'm like, damn it, right? I was pissed off because I put more down on that first half line than I did on the actual Pittsburgh game line. So I'm like, well, at least 14-3 Pittsburgh. I should probably win my Pittsburgh and the under bet here. And then all of a sudden, Justin Fields in the offense for Chicago caught fire. They had that huge fumble recovery touchdown, made it close. Even though I had picked the Steelers, I found myself even rooting for the Bears because Justin Fields has been put in a pretty bad spot, bad coach, bad play calling. It was cool to see him succeed, and they got that touchdown late that could have been the game winner, but they gave Big Ben too much time on the clock, and I knew it. I knew it. I was watching the game, and I was just thinking to myself, Pittsburgh will still win this game. And my bets were already screwed because they weren't going to win by, at that point, they were down 27-20. No, Pittsburgh was down 27-26 after that Fields touchdown. So I knew, I guess I still could have won. If Pittsburgh would have got a touchdown, I could have still covered the spread. It would have been 34. No, it would have been 33. 26. No, so sorry. I knew my bets were done because I wouldn't have covered. So I'm like, okay, Pittsburgh's going to get a field goal here. I just knew it was too much time. They still had one timeout and I think a minute 45. I just knew the Steelers were going to end up winning the game, which they did by a field goal. And then the Bears almost pulled off an incredible late field goal. They got to like midfield, I think it was, and 65-yard field goal wasn't really close. It was target-wise online, but he was like 5 yards short at least. So crazy game. I lost, obviously, both the Pittsburgh spread and the under, but it was a cool game to root for Fields. He looked good. He seems like a really easy guy to root for, and for Bears fans who haven't really had much to say about their quarterbacks for a while now, Fields could be that guy. I still think he kind of gets a little erratic sometimes, but he's got a cannon arm. He threw the one ball he threw where he just barely overthrew. I think it was Mooney. Might have been I think it was on the same drive they scored the touchdown on, actually, but he threw like a 60-yard bomb. He just missed them by like a foot, maybe not even. He's a fun guy to root for. So I wish I would have bet the Bears because coming into the game, I'm like, I really wish I picked the Bears. I don't know why. They haven't shown me much lately to pick them, but I just had this weird feeling about the Bears. And, I was, I guess, right in that. But anyway, pretty bad week. Like I said, overall, I went 12-16 overall. So only up from here. Maybe the cold is just infecting my brain and everything else too. So I don't know. But yeah, crazy week of football. Underdogs. I don't know what the stats are. I don't really care to spend the time to look them up, but are just maybe one of the biggest underdog weeks ever, dare I say. I don't know. It just was crazy, the underdogs, how well they did, both against the spread and even in outright games too. So yeah, week 10 picks, I guess, coming up within the next day or so here. And yeah, that's my week 9 recap.